Welcome to yet another scrumptious episode of our SJV Conversation podcast. I'm your man, James Wakakeke, and I'll be your host tonight. Your host, or rather should I say your co-host tonight. He is also our station manager and also our producer. Before I give him the slot to introduce tonight's topic, tonight we have the legends of legends in the studio. Madoda, a man who is probably the most decorated, admired in the religion and also in the region. He's also our academic dean, umphathiswa ke wezemfundo ezalapha ke St. John Vianney Seminary, the Honorable Father Joel Tulani Skosana. Kanti ke thina silapha ePitoli kwi headquarters zethu apha eseminary. We hope that you enjoy this podcast. As I said, in the future we'll have you guys come to ask questions to the guest whom we will be hosting that night, so that you ask your questions directly. Behind the scenes now, Kagiso, who is the HOD of our media, also known as KG Mukibelo. Sure. Dadahomo also is there behind the scenes with the cameraman. Next week. Father Dean, welcome.
Thank you, Honorable.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and greetings to all the viewers wherever you are. Sanbanani, Repereli, Okovela.
Or should I say all laboratories? Yes. Do you ever tell people that I admired you to wear a tie at least twice a week? Did you ever?
No, I couldn't lie to them. I can't lie, so because I know that you are really following me.
Any thoughts about the guest tonight and the topic of the day?
Well, today really we have one of the greatest among all our priests that we have here. I think you know him. He's known for a lot of exorcism and something which we will also be speaking about, James, really. I think this man really, as you have said, he's really decorated in this. Yeah. You can never see a poster which has a healing service without him. If you see it without him, then there's something that is wrong. There's something that is wrong. And so really, Father, today we are really grateful to have you among us, really to divulge on this topic, especially the topic of exorcism, demons, spirits, and also we'll look at Sangomas also in South Africa. What are traditional healers? What is the role that they play? What is really happening in our daily life today? Because really, James, as you know, nowadays most of our teenagers, they are really going for this initiation, for utwaso. Yeah. Maybe something that we will also be divulging on, engaging on. Maybe, James, as you have welcomed our guest, maybe we can start with this.
Yeah, Father Skosana, without going any further, let's start with somebody who is possessed, religiously. How do we know that this person is possessed, and how do we come to a conclusion that this is a demon and it needs exorcism? And maybe in your explanation of that, you can tell us what is exorcism for somebody out there who would like to learn more about exorcism.
Yeah, thanks very much, brothers, and for this beautiful conversation that you have started in the seminary. Very, very good, which is contributing to the people. Yeah, the topic of exorcism, demons, it's a huge one. And the one needs to understand that there isn't, one cannot claim to know everything about it.
Okay.
But of course, it's all about our individual experiences and what learning from one another. Basically, an exorcism in the context of the Catholic Church is it's a ritual. In other words, it's an official prayer that has a book. In other words, if
that you follow,
yes. So it means, and therefore, that is the prayer of the church, because it is written down, and it is a ritual that is done by a priest, of course, wearing proper vestments, and that has one particular aim, and that is to expel the demon or the devil or forces of darkness out of a person.
Do you say that you can't do it without the proper vestments?
You can't, because for me to say it is a ritual or a liturgical book or ritual, it means that it is a church praying. So you know that in the Catholic Church, if you do any kind of liturgical activity, you have to follow what is written down. Sure. You have to wear the proper vestments, of course, unless of course the situation is such that there is no time for that. But yes, but if you are performing an exorcism, you have to do it as a priest, and therefore you have to look like a priest and follow all the procedures, and that includes the vestments. So yeah, the aim then of exorcism is to expel a demon or the devil out of a person, or then it can also be other forces or other effects of the demonic powers that may have attacked this particular person.
A random person, Father Skosana, like me out there, how do you come to the conclusion that James is possessed?
Yeah.
He's not mentally ill, and whatsoever. How do we come to that kind of a conclusion?
I can, just like you, I can tell you that you're possessed.
No, but
this is how a possessed person
I mean, as you have highlighted there, I mean, sometimes you might find out that maybe someone is schizophrenic. Yeah. And how do you differentiate between the two?
Yeah. No, it's that's why the church insists that when it comes to exorcism, it shouldn't be everybody or all the priests who do that. Okay. It must be somebody specifically elected by the bishop. And when electing him according to canon law, he has to look into things like prudence, he has to look into things about the character of his own life, his wisdom, his maturity, and somebody who has some basic elementary learning about knowing how to differentiate between spiritual issues and maybe demonic forces, psychological issues and demonic issues. So in trying to discern whether somebody is possessed or not, it is good to also seek advice of psychiatrists and psychologists, those people who are there. Yeah, so that is what is recommended. It is not a must, but canon law does recommend something like that. So it is good not to easily conclude. So yeah, how then do you know that somebody is possessed? It is not always straightforward, but there are certain signs that seem to be consistent. As I said before, there are the standards are not always applicable, but there are certain things that seem to be common for one to be able to say that a person is possessed. One of them is that a person will really generally hate anything to do with God, with holiness. Yes, for instance,
this includes materials that are holy, sacramentals,
rosary, holy water. When you sprinkle them with that, they may feel.
At least I have my rosary, so that means I'm not.
Is it blessed?
It is. And you're drinking holy water with me.
Yeah. So things like that. They have a vehement, and we must clarify this well. They have a vehement aversion, not just that one just doesn't want to go to church, because somebody might just not like church because it's not interested to be there. But the person who has a vehement aversion to things of the church, and some of them then, when you want them to pray, they may struggle to call on the name of Jesus. They can say everything else except when it comes to Jesus, they may struggle to say things like that. And then there are other things as well that may happen, such as, for instance, they would know hidden things that no one can know under normal circumstance. And then they will also have extraordinary power. In that, for instance, if it's just a little child of 6, you may find that he will need something like 10 men not you, honorable man, like maybe this one. 10 over there.
So,
to try to hold them down.
Okay.
So those are just some of the things that may suggest that somebody is possessed. But then I understand that when we talk of possession as well, we also include things like witchcraft, because in South Africa, our commonest problem really is not satanic possession; it's witchcraft. It's witchcraft. Yeah.
So before Obaking asks his question, I wanted to, to dwell on that a little bit.
Yeah.
As a person who have traveled South Africa mostly, I'm sure even Southern Africa and the entire continent, how has the exorcism been accepted or rejected or seen by Africans? In the manner that, we watch a lot of movies, we see a lot of social media stuff, and these things, in our view, they are mostly in Europe, Asia, or wherever, you understand? I think we find it difficult on my side. I'm talking about my culture, I'm talking about where I come from, my background, which is the Eastern Cape. We don't come to a conclusion that this person might be possessed. You understand? How has that message, how has your going around, maybe preaching about it, talking about it, or asking about it, or even researching about it, how has it been accepted by the people around, Africans precisely?
Most of the time, people who make a mockery of these things are normally the clergy, not ordinary people. What I am encountering among our people is an exaggeration that everything that is not going well is a demon. Everything has to do with witchcraft. So I've got two extremes. With the clergy, you have those who fear this world so much, and they don't even want to be involved in it. And then others, they think that you are a bit mad, or something is not okay with you, and they think that maybe you're just creating stories. So so that is what generally you'll find among the clergy, is this negativity and taking it for granted, making fun of it. But among the people, especially the black people, they believe in the existence of demonic forces. And the problem with them now is that sometimes they don't make discernment. So now they want to attribute everything to a demon. Okay. If one is not getting a job, it's a demon. Though they wouldn't normally use the language of demons. They use the language of witchcraft. Witchcraft, that's the problem that we have. And the most difficult thing, in as much as it is difficult to convince most of the time the clergy, some of the clergy, that the devil exists and the possession is real, it's also very difficult to convince ordinary people, lay people, that what is happening in their lives is not witchcraft. Because they easily believe and attribute everything to witchcraft and demons. But otherwise, in terms of their receptivity, our people really appreciate when you pray for them, when they have challenges and they believe it's witchcraft. When you attend to them and pray with them and help them, they really appreciate that. And because of the scarcity of those who are willing to engage in this world, it becomes a problem, because few of the priests who try to pray for people, then it becomes a burden, because so many people flock to them. As a result, they don't have time to rest anymore, because you find that in many parishes, some of the priests, they don't care about this thing, they don't take it seriously, and as a result, people are hungry, and when they go through certain struggles, it's either they will go to other sources of help, or they will flock to certain priests who are trying to help, and it becomes a burden.
No wonder you don't sleep. Father Skosan is one of those guys who don't sleep at all. He's always in the office, he's either in the chapel. Daddy?
Yeah.
What's going on? Are the demons?
I told you you're possessed. How do you know this? How do you know this hidden knowledge?
See, it has been revealed to me. Okay.
Really, Father Kosana, you touched a bit on this, especially with our people. you know, every time whenever things doesn't go their way, they always feel that they are possessed or they are bewitched or something. Yeah. But what do we say about someone who says, I try to pray, but whenever I pray, prayer just, you know, fades away. I get distracted. There's always this heavy burden or a heavy force that comes on me whenever I pray. What do we say? Is this person now fighting with a spirit, or what is really happening there?
One cannot give an answer without discernment. We know that in our spirituality, the challenge of distraction in prayer or the difficulty of prayer is something that is normal, is usual. The saints do talk about that they even talk about what they call the desert moments or the dark night of the soul. So it is normal that as a Christian, yes, you may experience this kind of emptiness and feel like God is not there. And if you dry, you feel like not praying. So there is a normal, usual one. Of course, if you are attacked by forces of darkness, you can also experience that kind of a thing where you don't want to pray. That's because if you have got something demonic in you, when you pray, God's power comes in, usually in the form of fire. And it can burn whatever that is there, so it gets disturbed. So that's why it can block you from praying, from going to church and things like that. So yeah, you have to discern. You cannot conclude easily that it is a demon. So I also need to really encourage our people to not easily conclude that something is demonic. You know, you need to make discernments. Sure. Whilst demons exist and witchcraft exists, it is not true that it is as much as people want to attribute. There are cases, but it's not like really the demons everywhere, witchcraft everywhere. No, God is in charge of the world, and there are limits to what the devil can do on earth. So it's very, very important for people not to easily conclude. But
what about this one? Whenever she goes to church, whenever a priest lay hands on her or him, this person just fall out of the blue, and you know, for the moment they zone out, and after whatever service which they have attended or mass, when they tell them that no, you had fallen and something happened to you, and they always say, but if I fall in church, it means now I'm possessed, and now they no longer want to come to church because of every time they are the ones falling, and now people always, you know, have the stigma of saying this person is possessed because of once a priest touches her or after receiving the Eucharist, this person just falls. What do we say about those kinds of things?
Maybe in conjunction, maybe when you answer that, can every priest exorcise? And if not, can at least they lay their hands? And what would be the scenario in that case in answering his question?
Okay, maybe to start with your question, every priest has the power and authority and capacity to exercise, because by virtue of ordination, you have been given power to stand in the name of Christ and by the authority of the church. So the power is there. However, the church desires that the one who gets involved in exorcism must have been chosen by the bishop, and the bishop must look at all the conditions that I mentioned. The reason for that is not that some priests are more powerful than others. It's a question of the practical wisdom. That this is a very sensitive issue, and if you make a mistake, let me say for instance, somebody has a psychological problem, and you insist they are possessed, and you keep praying for them. In the meantime, instead of them going to the doctor, they stop, they become worse and worse, and obviously nothing will happen. You're going to affect people's faith because people will think that God is powerless. So it's very dangerous, this whole thing. Even yourself.
It can affect many people.
Yes, so that's the reason. It's not because the one is not chosen because they think is more powerful than other princes. It's the wisdom that they look at. Yeah, there are many reasons why people may fall in church. Some, of course, want to fall. So they are looking forward to falling.
What do you mean?
You know, when you do the healing services, there are people
you mean really, falling literally?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
They want to fall. Okay, maybe let's put it in a positive way. let's put it in a positive way that they want to experience God's power.
Okay.
Because maybe they see people falling, they also want to feel that. Maybe sometimes because they have problems and then they believe that when you have fallen, it means
and then you rise up.
Yeah. So obviously some will come ready, already in that. Only need to touch and then they fall. Yeah. So others it's not genuine. Others may fall because of the touch of the Holy Spirit, what they call to be slain in the Spirit. Usually, that falling is gentle, and when one falls down, they will be at peace, because one can just fall under the power of the Holy Spirit, and in that moment, the Holy Spirit may be doing things like healing them. So they will just lie down, peacefully so, and they experience a lot of peace, and when they wake up, they'll be it's a very positive, beautiful experience. So you can fall because of the power of the Holy Spirit. Others can fall because of a presence of something satanic, because if let's say you've got something, whether that was put inside of you either by witchcraft or through satanism, whether a demon or a creature or a person who is a witch or whatever it is, when someone prays for you and God's power comes, it weakens the thing that is in you. So the thing that is in you becomes weak, and by being weak, it weakens your physical body. That's why you end up falling. So in fact, in reality, it is what is inside of you that is falling. It is not you. So that's why when that thing comes out, you will feel very revived and very much okay. But as long as it is there, you will not feel that. So you can fall therefore also because there is something that is demonic. Others, it can be psychological. In that there are certain, I think, sicknesses, but that we still need to research more, that can get triggered by a particular kind of a prayer because it's a psychological problem. So yeah, there is that element of that. There are people, for instance, who may fall because they have excessive fear that they're going to fall, so they believe that. Or there can be certain conditions that can be such that when you do say certain things, somebody can fall. Yeah. So there are many reasons. You need to discern when, as a priest, as you are there. You don't just accept everything as demonic. Yes, you have to. That's where wisdom comes in, experience comes in. You need to discern. Exorcism.
Now, I'm interested in the formation of exorcists, right? You mentioned some of them, like you should be prudent, should be a wise man, and prayerful, maybe a senior or an adult, mature, you know. But what are the aspects which are not known in public, if you are allowed to share that? What is the school behind the exorcist? Can you go to Rome, for instance, for a course in that, and it makes you an exorcist? And if that is the case, what is it that the priest who would be exorcist in the future have to go through? One of the things that I read about was that if somebody is possessed, as a priest you need to name the demon, or at least the demon should give the name. You understand? Are those part of the curriculum, if I may put it that way?
Yeah, okay. There are more courses that are offered in Rome for people who are exorcists. So for you to go there, you must have been elected by the bishop. But let's clarify that exorcism is something that is extreme. it is a ritual prayer that is made on a person who is possessed, is normally by the demon or the devil. There are many other things that affect people that do not need exorcism. Like, I mean, if they've given you something miraculously to eat, or if somebody is sleeping with some, not a demon, but some creature, because that's witchcraft that I'm talking about. If somebody has been bound, for instance, this is thing like witchcraft, they can do through witchcraft, that they can bind you so that you're not able to bear children or to succeed in life. All these other things, they don't need an exorcist in that official way. Any priest can pray for that. So that's why even the church distinguishes between a major exorcism and minor exorcism. So for instance, during baptisms, in all baptisms, there's an option for praying for exorcism before you baptize a person, you see. So if somebody, let's say, they have experiencing demons, I mean a satanic attack or witchcraft attack, in that, for instance, they've got a kind of a sickness that is evil because it resulted from witchcraft, and then nothing can be detected medically. That as long as a demon is not speaking inside of them, any priest can pray for that. It's only when somebody is really possessed by a demon or the devil who actually speaks inside of a person, and his body is totally overtaken, that we may need an official exorcist. But all these other things, because possession is a very rare thing in that way. It's a very, very rare thing. In South Africa, what is very common, I can say, even myself, more than 98% of what I've dealt with had to do with witchcraft, not possession. That's a very rare thing. But witchcraft is very common in South Africa, and it happens everywhere and at every time, yes. So in terms of the requirements, then by being a priest, you've got the power, and you should pray for people when they are attacked by any kind of spirit. It's only when you discern that this is possession in a strict sense that then you need permission from the bishop, or if there is an exorcist, then the exorcist will have to do that. So the part of the course is maybe it will be an experience of how you recognize a demon, how to behave, how to act, guidance on things like that. Yeah, but fundamentally, what you need generally as a priest, really, it's prayer. You have to pray. You need to pray and be serious about trusting God. That's it. Yeah. And any priest who is willing to help people, he has the power to expel a demon. Yeah.
I think maybe just going a bit back to the falling. You know, nowadays, Father, we have, especially the 2000s, they always have this problem of falling in church. Yeah. And sometimes some of these young kids, then you hear a voice of someone speaking, and which has really threatened a lot of them to go to the initiation school. You know, really, how does one discern that, okay, whatever that the person has inside is really leading them to go to that extreme of Rotwaza? Okay, maybe this person just received communion, or there was this song which was sung, and then even the way the drum was played, and now this person just falls, and someone or a voice out of this person just speaks and says, if you don't want to do this, then I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 on you. You know, because I think most of them, they are also driven by fear. How do you distinguish?
Yeah, discernment also becomes very, very important there. Number one, we have to be clear that because it's usually these young girls, and rarely is it boys, but that doesn't mean it's fake. But some, it is psychological, because these people watch a lot of YouTubes, and then they may be going through a lot in their homes, and they may be looking for attention. So you need to discern to be clear that this is not psychological, because especially those who will be making a lot of noise in the church. But Claudia, everybody, you have to be very careful most of the time, those ones, because it might just be a cry for attention. But of course, as a priest, you don't condemn them. You have to be kind to them, because if you do that, you're obviously sick. You have the sickness of wanting attention. It's also a sickness. So you don't crush them. You have to.
Why did you look at me when you said that?
No, Yeah.
It's like your eyes were fixed. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not taking
Because
about
I was
this
remembering,
podcast.
I was remembering the day you also fell and shouted.
Let's not go there.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, it is possible for a person to have a spirit inside of them. It can be a spirit of a demon, a spirit of a dead person, it can be a spirit of a witch who is alive at the moment. So if it's one of those, one can fall and then this spirit can talk from one of the three. The witch, Tikolosho, or someone who's dead, or it can be a witch who is inside of there. And then also it can the spirits of the dead can also speak also through somebody and desire that people go through the process of utlasa. So all this desire that you do discernment, you don't easily conclude that just because somebody is speaking inside of someone, then it or that you have to make a discernment before you conclude. So it's always necessary when a person falls that way, you don't just start by praying there and there. Unless, of course, the situation is there. It's good that after Mass, sit with them down, interview, understand. And for you, you'll be able to tell if they are called to becoming ancestor, or Amadlos, only by interview, because there are certain signs, there are certain things that will go together with the falling that may suggest that this person, perhaps what is behind them, has to do with Amadlos. Every priest has the power and capacity to exercise, because the weight of ordination may be given so the power is there. We are talking about something who is passed on, and who is still alive.
Very interesting. Bapula put us in SJV community. We podcast here too with the legendary, the exorcist, the titles out. You know, we are with you.
You're the ones who called me an exorcist. No one has ever called me that, even my bishop. So I don't know.
Maybe this is a prophecy. This is a prophecy. You know, I'm introducing you to the people. You know, Bapula Puli, we are here with your Father Skosana to give us an insight on these matters of the church and these matters of our communities, especially as Africans. Father Skosana, to divert a little bit, you mentioned something about ancestors. You know, sometimes people hear voices, communications from ancestors, from those who have gone before us, who belong to their families. You know, can we say that, can we trace ancestors in the Bible, perhaps? Can we take something, you know, which has to do with ancestors? And whatever we get from the Bible, can we also put together with our own kind of understanding with ancestors?
Yeah, okay. You see, if we use the word ancestor, which is an English word, I mean, we do have ancestors in a Western way, in that even Jesus, when you look at the Gospel of Matthew, they trace his genealogy as using the ancestors, that the father of this gave father of, is the same. You do find these genealogies in Genesis. So for the Jews, it's an important thing. So, but those are ancestors in an English way. The thing is, if you say Amadlos in our language, it's something very different from the English ancestor. So maybe let's use our languages. Let's use Badini, Amadlos, I think this is better, because when you say Idlos, you are talking about somebody who has passed on, but who is still alive and is still with us. He has got the capacity to make you successful. He has got the capacity to block your life. He has got the capacity to bless you. He has got the capacity to give you visions. is somebody who can control your life, can block your life. So it's something more than just a parent in the thing. Yeah. So maybe let's use amadlozi and all that. Now the only thing that we have, so we don't have an amadlozi in that fashion in the Bible. There are no clear references of the understanding of amadlozi in that way. But the Bible does show us that it is possible for the spirits that have died to be called, to be summoned. And as a result, the Bible prohibits us from summoning, from conjuring the spirits, calling them, in other words, consulting them. And by consulting, we mean that really going to them in order to seek information. So by prohibiting that, the Bible isn't directly showing that it is possible to do it, because there wouldn't be a prohibition if it was impossible. Yes.
Wow.
And we also do have a story of, I think it's 1 Samuel 34, if I'm not mistaken, the story of Saul who went to consult a medium, and this medium called Samuel, and Samuel did appear. Yes, it did appear.
And he was not happy, if I remember well.
He was not impressed.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
He said, "Why are you disturbing me?"
Yeah.
And Saul, and it's interesting because Saul, he ended up going there after he had actually banned all the mediums. And he went there because he tried to pray for a long time, and God was silent because he was in sin. And this is also what people do. We try first by praying, and when if we feel like God is
then it's
very
go another direction.
So that is the only thing that we have, is the prohibition of consulting the spirits of the dead. That one is there. So it does confirm in a way that it is possible to consult the spirits of the dead.
Before our King, I read somewhere that the Transfiguration, for instance, Jesus goes to the mount. He takes with him Peter. I was there also, James, and so on. Not me, but I'm just cracking. But there appeared Moses and Elijah.
Yes.
Moses with the law, and Elijah with the mantle of the can I say the covenant and stuff, or the Jewish custom. It said there, they appeared Jesus' ancestors, and they say that they spoke with him. I'm sure it will say also that they spoke about his death. I think that is how we
the kind of death
it.
he was going.
But it says they appeared, his ancestors, you know. Yeah. Although it precisely says that Peter, James, and John did not hear what was the conversation. It was between Jesus and the two guys. Is it safe to say that it was his ancestors?
Okay. The first thing to remember, it doesn't say the ancestors. It doesn't say that, but it does say Moses and Elijah. One thing important to remember is that Elijah was believed not to have died. Remember that?
Sure, he
was taken up to heaven. So I don't know by that whether he qualifies to be an ancestor the way that we understand it. Moses as well, there are two traditions about him. The first tradition we find in Deuteronomy 34 is a tradition that he died and got buried. But there are also other traditions in the Bible that he did not actually die, you see. So that he disappeared, yes, he was taken up to heaven. So you understand, whereas we understand amadlozi culturally is the first thing that you must die. Those ones did not die. So it's a controversial. I don't think that you can easily argue that he is an ancestor in that way. But that text does confirm that people do continue in the spirit, and in the Bible as well throughout. I mean, it does confirm that people do continue to live, to exist beyond death. So I'm not sure if you can use this text to validate the question of the ancestral belief. I'm not saying it's something wrong. I'm just saying that we have to be honest to what the text is saying. It doesn't say that those people are ancestors of Jesus, but also the reason they appeared in the Bible there, it's because of the tradition that they didn't die. They didn't die.
Beautiful.
Yes.
So basically what you're saying, Father, for you to become an ancestor, you have to die first. So what makes one an ancestor, apart from just dying? Because many people die. Some die out of violence. And
all
some
of us die.
Of course, all of us. They say we live every day and die once.
Not all of us. Mary didn't die.
No, I'm talking about us now.
No, we're talking about us since you said we should bring it to our context.
Even if she died, she resurrected quickly.
This is another interesting part. I said we need another podcast for that part. For that part, yeah.
Two views on Mary. I mean, that's why the church doesn't say something, because some schools say she died first and then resurrected.
Okay.
Some say no, she didn't die. So it's not clear. So
there's this part where it says when her life ended on earth.
That's what it says. Yes, the belief of
yeah.
the church. Just when her life ended. As to how it will be for you.
For the person we'll call her before that. Yeah.
So yeah, what qualifies one to be an ancestor? Because of I think maybe part of ancestors, we want to look at our ancestors as people who have lived a good life, you know, and we know there's a reality that some of us who don't really live such a good life. Then let's say, for instance, I have been practicing witchcraft. Do I qualify to become an ancestor? Because sometimes you get that I end up becoming an ancestor and you get by my own lineage.
All right. I think first it's a common thing that amadlozi are people who have passed on. I've never heard of idlozi that did not die. You have to die. Just like being a saint in the church. You have to die. But I know that if you can happen to go directly, you'll still be a saint. But normally now what we are doing is that you must have died. You can't be a saint while you're still alive. So that is the practice now. So idlozi is someone who first of all has passed on. They're now in the world of the ancestor. Now, as to whether everybody becomes an ancestor or idlozi, depend on some of the language groups. In KZN and some of Basotho, they claim that when you die, you don't automatically become an ancestor. You become an ancestor only if you have lived a good life and provided they've performed certain rituals for you. It's then that you get incorporated into the family of the ancestors. I'm not sure if this is a very common belief and fact, because for some that we've interviewed, they say that everybody who dies is an ancestor. But it's just a question that there are certain ancestors that you cannot relate with because of their life, as you said, if somebody was a killer. But even that one, in some of the beliefs, in some of the people, it can become helpful. For instance, if let's say you have got a problem in that they are bewitching you, you wouldn't normally go to someone who is very soft. Some of them will tell you that they will go to this kind of ancestor who used to stab people because they know that then he will work for them, you see. So even those one can be regarded as good. But yes, generally, you wouldn't name a person after an idlozi that was not good. But when you go to the north, there is no distinction. Everyone who dies, but when I say the north, I'm saying the Bavenda, Batsonga, Bapedi, and when I say Bapedi, let me say the northern Sotho languages, all of them, and even what falls under Tsongas, because there are many sub-languages there, yes. There is very clear, everyone who dies become an ancestor. There is no distinction whatsoever about that. So I think generally, the general belief is that everyone who dies is an ancestor. But then as to whether the person can be called will depend on whether they were good or not good, but also that you can die, you are still an ancestor, but you're not yet incorporated into the family of other ancestors.
So we can say that there's the categories of ancestry, meaning because of this need to be a ritual performed first before, so you die now and you are there outside your own ancestral clan, and after they have performed the ritual, that's when you are incorporated.
That will be more on the Zulu part. But in the north is very clear. It's very simple and straightforward. You die, you are
so I die today, tomorrow I'm your ancestor.
Yeah, but normally then they must do the ritual of bringing you back, because in the in Chitsonga culture, there is this what they call Kanzelo. That is a shrine where they consult or they pray to the ancestors. So they have to take your spirit and put you in that Kanzelo before they start calling you, because the belief is that you're not there as yet. So they need to so there is not a problem. But among the Zulu, there is some distinction. A lot of them say somebody does not become an ancestor until he is incorporated to the family of the ancestors through rituals. And if they did not live a very good life, they cannot be incorporated there. I'm not sure if that is the original indigenous view or it was influenced by Christianity. I'm not sure. But I can say some of the people that I interviewed, for instance, in some of the traditional leaders, they said, when they told me that everyone who dies is an ancestor. So it doesn't seem to be a belief held by all Zulu-speaking people. But it seems that a lot of them hold that kind of thing.
You know, for this question, I don't know how much you are exposed to the Eastern Cape and its belief on this. Maybe I can share some insights with you. Maybe if you have, if you have encountered some of these things, like for instance, for us, let me be precise about the Xhosas. You have to send off the spirit first to go and mingle with other ancestors or other spirits before ukubuyisa. So you cannot buyisa what you never sent off. Have you encountered something like that?
Yes, I have. From what I'm reading now, that a special ritual and then no buyisa. Yes, I did hear about that. I did also interview some few people, for instance, some people. There was so we did also ask a question from Marcus. The question that you qualify to be lost by good life, that is not. I did not also find it strong there. I do know that the rituals are made to help you so that you are not lost. But it's not that because it is not done, you are not an ancestor necessarily. But you are. It's just that maybe you are not now able to function well because you are not. You have not been helped to be part of the thing. I've heard that. I think it's something that is debatable. I cannot stand strongly to say this is really a dogmatic stand that if you die, you have to qualify all the time. But yeah, I do accept that there is a section among the Nguni who hold that. I mean, the Ndebelers, for instance, they also fall under Nguni. They don't hold that. They accept that everyone who dies is an ancestor, though there are certain rituals that are important to be made. Eswatini as well, they also hold the same thing, that if you die, you are an ancestor. But whether you are able to work well depends on whether these rituals have been done for you. So for you to be able to be part of the family.
But that involves a lot of slaughtering.
Yes, but not bringing someone back doesn't mean that you are not necessarily ancestor, because an ancestor is a family member who has passed on, really, fundamentally.
Now, in those research, for instance, how much have you heard of the highest being? It could be either Kamata, it could be Umfelenqangi for the Eastern Capers. I don't know, Colin Popo.
Umfelenqangi is not the Eastern Capers.
No, Umfelenqangi, Kamata. That's what I wanted to. Yeah. You see, I was testing your knowledge on this thing to prove that you have been to the
We are talking about something who has passed on, but who is still alive and capacity to be successful, the capacity to help life, the capacity to bless you, the capacity to give patience. It's somebody who can control your life, control your life. So it's something more than just ancestors are seen as the source.
there, but it's not strong. Father Skosana is trying to hammer me, whereas I'm hammering him now. But I know that he doesn't accept it that way. But I'm the honorable director here with Father Skosana and normally, the Eastern Capers would say that there's Ukamata.
Yeah.
And then there is that immediate ancestor of that particular clan.
Yeah.
How much have you dealt with that?
There is a change now, a change of outlook and view, in that a lot of Sangoma, actually all that we have interviewed, and that was more than 100 of them, none of them, there is none who doesn't believe in God. They all believe in God, even though they see, a lot of them see God and ancestors as distinct, and they are not, they don't see ancestors as intercessors. They see them as almost parallel. So they say, Badimo baka le mudimu, badimo de mudimu. Amadlozam no kulungulu. They don't say Amadlozam or don't say kulungulu through. They don't. This end. So they say them parallel. Yeah. So what is clear in the researches done in the Southern Africa is that there was, it seems, some idea of the supreme being, for instance, but there is no evidence of any ritual or prayer made to them.
Oh,
yeah,
that's interesting. You know.
So then it becomes one starts to ask question that
wow,
was this is a controversy
kind of thing?
Was it yeah? Was it always there? Because I mean, Africans are very spiritual people, and the question is it possible that there was a belief that there is this supernatural being, but there is nothing? Nothing yes. So yes, otherwise such names are there. I mean, we've got the Mwari in Venda, the idea of the supreme. It is claimed it's the supreme god. Is also in the Shona as well. They've got the same kind of concept. And then Umverlang, and then as we said, Kamata, the other side. Among the Tsonga, we still need to also investigate whether the word Chikwembu really originated from, it came with missionaries, or whether they existed. Yeah. So yes, there are those claims that there was someone, a supreme being. I mean, one I think this guy was a priest from Lesotho. I forgot his name, but he made a research where he claims that Noraya Metsi. That they believe that originally that was a supreme being. It's an interesting study. So he also claims that there was an idea of a supreme being there. Yeah, but it is a controversial thing. What is clear, even though there are names for such supreme being, what is amazing and raises a lot of questions is the fact that there are no rituals directed to this high being. Yeah, so it becomes very difficult. It's an interesting thing that how did that happen? And I mean, if one is to argue that the idea disappeared because of missionaries, for me personally now, I think that argument will not make sense, because it should have been stronger.
In that case,
not disappear, it should have been stronger, you know, you understand that. But then why did it disappear? Despite the fact that the missionaries came in.
So does this really nullify the idea that we have as Africans of saying that missionaries sold their God to us, and so what we had already been practicing, and they said it was demon? Because I think now there's always this controversy of people saying ancestors, ancestral worship or whatever, the rituals which were performed, which were done before, how we have always praised this supreme being of the Africans was nullified by this Christianity. Christianity has removed this. And you always hear people arguing and saying that, yeah, even before I became Christian, I was African. Now, does this thing of not having a ritual to this supreme God, does it nullify the fact that we might be thinking that the missionaries brought us this Christ, but all along it's something that has always been there?
Yeah, I mean, if the fact that there are names of Umverlang, of yes, the February. It does suggest that it's not like the Africans were blank about this reality of the Supreme Being. There are some ideas about that, and obviously, nor does it annul the fact that the Africans had a belief system, religion, which is a matter of fact. But what is clear, as a matter of fact now, historically, and what has been done now, is that the ancestors became the object of sacrifices, the object of daily prayers. They are regarded as the ones who are responsible for the fortunes and misfortunes in our lives. Some claim that these ancestors were understood to be intercessors. But I must say that in the research that I've made, it's not a strong thing. Ancestors are not strongly seen as intercessors. The idea of them being intercessors is very weak. Ancestors are seen as the source of blessings. They can open doors, they can close them. They give you Rubungoma, they can take it away. They are not really, the idea of them speaking to God is there, but it's not strong. You do find that, I mean, even those who are in the traditional churches who pray, like Maparofita and all those people like that, they do pray, they believe in God, but when you listen very well, they do make a distinction. For instance, in the church, they don't normally speak about Amadlo, they speak about is true, Mangeloi, not Amadlos, you see. So somebody who is a traditional healer and a prophet, when they're in church, they make sure that the prayers are directed to God. And if you have to do umpah, you don't do it in church, you do it at home. So you can still see that there is a distinction in that situation as well. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that then is a fact that we venerated ancestors, and we're very strong. Our religion was strongly founded on ancestors, even though it does seem that there is evidence of the consciousness of a supreme being, but there is no ritual that we know that was directed to that, even though some are still busy doing researches now. As I said, for instance, the man from Lesotho who wanted to argue that a supreme being was there and certain things, rituals were done to him. It's a very interesting research, because he also quotes some songs, some songs and poetry from Lesotho to prove that. But whether that
ancient songs,
ancient songs, yes, to prove the understanding of the supreme being, yes. Whether that is plausible, I think one still needs to research. Yes, but I'm just saying that there is an idea like that that exists. But also remember, my brother, people like saying Christianity is the religion of Yamaho of the West. That is incorrect. Christianity is the religion of the East. So the West was also evangelized. Yes, it's not like they invented it. They were also evangelized, and then they came to us. All people in the world had contrary, strange religions. All of them. I mean, Europe was very strong on the ancestral belief system. In Asia now, even now, it's still very strong. I mean, in China, everywhere. I mean, the Greeks, everywhere. Yes, there is no tribe in the world that never believed in ancestors. They too had to change and to embrace Christianity, and to abandon some of their belief systems. Yes. So I'm just trying to say there is nothing there's nothing unbecoming in us. Maybe believing the way that we believe, and then Christianity comes to us. This was the case with all other people. I mean, Abraham himself was a pagan before he was called by God. Yes, he believed in many gods. God called him. The Israelites themselves, I mean, they believed that there were other gods. So the whole world was pagan.
Maybe we should write a paper on this.
I mean, Father, if you look at, especially speaking about ancestors here in South Africa, there are those churches which always says, you know, ancestors are demons. and now they end up having people outside there feeling that their own ancestors are demons. How do we really, not really to say correct people, or how do we get to understand this thing, you know? Because I think the way other churches do it is as if Christianity now moved people away from their ancestors, and maybe that's why we also have this problem in our parishes, where people will invite you to say, Father, I have a home blessing, but before you come in the morning at 5 a.m. they are doing a mumpasonyana, and by the time no Father because of they're afraid or and they're also afraid, or maybe you will say, no, what you are doing is evil.
Yeah.
You know. So how do we?
Yeah.
Maybe before you answer that further question, again, there's this also, maybe in answering that question, can you also look at this confusion of, can I call it he has? Maybe Gachiso can help me with that. These mushroom churches, that's my point. I think, this is my personal view, but nobody told me this is what I've observed. I think these mushroom churches are also in kind of confusing people. Correct me if I'm wrong. I have family members who are told today by their pastors or religious leaders not to do amasiko, you know, traditional and cultural customs. When we do that at home, they exit, they disappear for a week or so. Maybe in answering Obaken's question, maybe we can touch base on
that. The Catholic Church has learned, and I think it's because of having been in existence for a long time, we have come to understand that there is an element of goodness in every culture. Okay. And also in every religion, unless it is demonic, satanic, yes, there is an element of goodness. So it is always good to have this open-minded kind of thinking, and to really study the scripture thoroughly, so that you are able to know things that are good and things that are not good. So that the total condemnation of everything is really human prejudice. It's not what is in the scriptures. It's just prejudice. I mean, Paul had to deal with the problem of food sacrificed to idols, because at that time, whatever was sold in the market, especially meat, it would have been first sacrificed to a particular idol. And then Paul was facing this situation, and he found a pastoral, a middle ground where he said, look, when you go eat without asking too many questions, you see? And this is the same thing that Jesus said when he was sending the apostles. He said, wherever you go, eat whatever is provided. Yeah. Because he knew that you will go to a pagan place where they will give you a meat that has been sacrificed to wherever. So he was saying to you, look, eat whatever that is put in front of you. And even if it can be a pork, because as a Jew, they didn't eat pork. So he was giving them that solution. Yeah. So demons versus ancestral spirits. Ancestors cannot be demons. The word demon, originally in its Greek original meaning, daimonion, it referred to a fallen spirit, but we won't go to that because it will take our time unnecessarily. So there was a good daimonion, yeah.
No, this is our devil.
Yeah. Oh, yes, diabolos.
I mean, I studied Greek.
Yeah, there would have been a good demon, and it was just meant the fallen spirit. They will have a good one and a better one. But now, at this moment, when we say demon, specifically in our theology now, we are specifically referring to those angels who have been kicked out of heaven and they've been judged and they are in hell. That's what we mean by a demon. So it is a demon that, by definition, is a different kind of a species, is a spiritual being. Because there were angels. Remember, there were different kind of categories in heaven, where the seraphim, the cherubim, the archangels, the powers, the domination. So out of these categories came out all these angels who were rebelling against God according to Revelations. So they were kicked out. So in their essence, angels are spiritual beings. Whereas a human being is a combination of the spirit and the body. So these are two different species. So there is no way a human being can be a demon. You understand that? Just as a human being cannot be an angel, because you are a different, yes, because you are a composite of a body and soul. So demons by that very fact, I mean human being by that very fact cannot be demons. So then what happens with some, without criticizing of course other people's belief system, what happens is that for some, because of prejudice and maybe not giving themselves time to actually do proper discernment, then anything that speaks in a person is a demon. They just clarify it as demon. But if you make a discernment, it will help you to know how to deal with that. Because if you have a demon, of course, you cast the demon out. But if you have a human being, there is another possibility of praying for them to rest, you see, which would be something good. Because you can find a wandering spirit that is not able to rest well because of whatever that they've done. So you can pray for the spirit to rest well. But this will only come if you give yourself time to distinguish between demons and human beings. Yeah, and sometimes something that speaks inside of a person is it can be a spirit of someone who has passed on, who is being used by other witches in a wrong way. So such a spirit, instead of just casting it out, taking it back to its suffering, you can pray for it to be delivered. So this discernment is necessary. So in the Catholic Church, therefore, we make a distinction between demons and the spirit of the dead. So if someone dies and they go to hell, they still cannot be called demons. They are still human beings, but condemned human beings. Yeah. So the two are different species and should not be confused.
So, Father, maybe to divert a bit. So you know, there's this thing, traditional healing and witchcraft. What's the difference there?
Yeah. Traditional healing, okay, we are still using English again. English robs us of better understanding. I think when we talk of Obongom, I know that in English we are going to call it traditional healing, but that's you know why it's a problem. It's this word is reductionary in that what does a Sangoma do? A Sangoma heals, a Sangoma protects you, a Sangoma helps you to have luck, a Sangoma can help you to have a wife, a Sangoma can help you to have a child, a Sangoma can give you something that can kill you, can give you something that can heal you. In other words,
can they help us in vocation?
Eh?
Can they help us
in which vocation?
This one.
Yeah, I can give you something so that you wash, so that when I look at you, I just feel that you qualify.
Wow. Do you know English? Maybe you can that I can.
Yeah. Can tell you that.
Yes, after the podcast, we'll put up
So I mean, it's the Izangoma are holistic. Izangoma are people who help people in all different kinds of problems and challenges. In other words, they are there to, according to what was originally indigenous understanding, they are there to help people in all aspects of life. If you are sick, they heal you. If things are not going well, they help you to have luck. If family people are fighting, I can give you something so that your wife loves you. If somebody is bothering you, you can come, and if someone has killed my family member, I can go there so that we send back to the center. So it's complex. It's complex. So now, because you're asking about traditional healing and that, I think then what we must ask it this way, that Izangoma witches. Maybe we should ask that. Yes. And the answer is in its essential original meaning, no. Obongoma was not for causing harm, according to what these people have said. It has been a system that was there, and its original aim has been for the good of the people. That was the general understanding. But given that if you are a Sangoma, you have got, or a Nyanga, you have got access to many things, you know many things. You can be tempted and end up actually being a Sangoma that is doing things that are detrimental to life. Because people can come to you now and say, look, I want to go and kill someone, but I don't want to be arrested.
Sure.
Because you are exposed to all kinds of mood and you know things, you can be tempted and take the money and then do that. But that doesn't make the African system bad. I mean, even in the Western system, people do abortions. It's done by, we're not supposed to be like that. I think like euthanasia now.
Yes.
I mean, if you're a doctor, medical doctor, you've got access to all kinds of drugs, so you can use them anyhow. In the same way, Sangomas has got access to all kinds of food, they can use them anyhow. Yes. So witchcraft then in our context will be using supernatural force in order to cause harm to somebody. That is how it is understood. Are there some who do that in Sangoma? Yes, they are there. But that is not what Sangoma Ubongoma was meant for. It was meant for, when I say Ubongoma, it was meant for ancestors are seen as the source. They can open up different things. They give you Ubongoma that can take it. I'm not really the idea of there. It's there, but it's not strong.
We are on our last lap. I have followers. Yeah, just having made my podcast. Some of us have gone before. I will never invite Father Skosana again. I think he's taking over now in my show. But anyway, so far we've been doing good, Father Skosana. Just to remind you at home, you can follow us on our social media here in the seminar, St. John Vianney, on our Facebook page. You can also follow us at Instagram and also on YouTube to follow this podcast. Please do comment on those bars, and maybe you can suggest the topics that we can discuss in the future. Although we may not be able to do that at the same time because we have a list of topics to cover before the end of this semester. So, but that doesn't stop you from suggesting those topics. We may deal with them in the future, even those will take care of this podcast after us. So please comment, tell us what you didn't like, also do suggest and give us a feedback. A positive feedback and a negative feedback would help us to grow more and more, so that we deliver something that is constructive to our people out there. Father Skosana, we are at the last lap. There are only 2 topics we haven't covered. Ukutwasa, ukutwala. Have you encountered those?
Ukutwasa,
Ukutwala.
ukutwala.
Let's go there for this course. Don't demonstrate.
Okay, yeah, ukutwasa, kutwasa, kutwasa, generic word really. It's used in 2 ways. Some will talk about Uktwasa as that graduation ceremony on the day when Isangoma now has finished, or Inyanga, and to go home. Some will
to practice
that very last ceremony, like a graduation that you do when you've been to school. Some will call that only that particular event as Uktwasa. But the general understanding of Uktwasa is that it is that process of initiation. From the day when you enter into a school, at the place where you are under the covenant, from day 1, then that whole process until ugoduka ubuyela ekhaya ohoroshwa umshitshwa gaye, then it's called that process of ukutwasa. It's a Xhosa word, but I want to ask you what it means.
I'm also not going to answer anyway.
Yes. Yeah, so, but I think it's not necessary to go into the etymology and all that. Ukutwala Ukutwasa is from the indigenous perspective, a positive thing, because it's a process by which somebody opens up to this process of initiation, through which at the end there will be for the helping people in different ways. And this is how I think the Africans used to help people before the dawn of Western medicine and Western religion as well. This is how our people used to be helped. Ukutwala, on the contrary, is a very negative thing in that it is people who will use muti or certain forces or powers specifically for riches, for riches, and it is something that is negative because in most instances it will include, it involves that there must be regular sacrifices to this particular thing. So somebody may use the power of the python, for instance, and there is a python that might need to be fed. And sometimes it can be fed by human blood, you see. In other instances it can be just normal animal blood, but it can also go to that extent. So it's specifically for riches. So somebody who wants riches in success in terms of business, for instance, riches in terms of success in terms of fame, things like that. But it has to do with materialistic kind of stuff. It's something that in our African culture we frown at, because in African culture we value a good lifestyle much more than riches. Yes, you see. So by its nature, it is anti-cultural. It goes against the values of Ubuntu, and it wants to centralize materialistic things over against the human life. I mean, in Sepedi, for instance, they've got a saying, a proverb, Fita homo usware mutu. In other words, centralize a person, put them at the center much more than homo is a cow, and it represents riches. So it means that if a cow and a person are drowning,
save
yes, leave the cow, save the person. Yes.
Just understand the spirit.
Well,
I'm an African.
Oh, you're an African.
I was not aware.
So Father, we spoke about Ugutwasa and the process, whatever. But let's say there's this person sitting at home now, and this person is hearing these voices which says he needs and this person is afraid of doing this. But people who always engage with this person always instill this fear of saying, if you don't do what your ancestors want, then you'll be harmed.
Yeah.
Now, how do we help this person? How do we help this person to overcome this fear?
First, it is true. It is a general experience of people who are into Ubungoma. Just to clarify that when I say Ubungoma and Sangomarela, we're using it as a generic word to include things like prophets, Izinyanga. We just use this word in a generic way. So it is their experience that a call of Ubungoma manifests through pain. It will be usually sicknesses or misfortunes. And then it is also a matter of fact that I can say almost all the traditional healers that I interviewed, except in Botswana, all of them said they did not want to be a traditional healers or a Sangoma. They were compelled by suffering. So it's either they had the choice to continue suffering or to surrender. And some of them will tell you that if they don't surrender, the problem that they were facing might go into their children. So the question of the fear is a real one, it seems, because the experiences of suffering is real to these people. So they end up into that situation, yes. So outside of God, there isn't much possibility of helping a person who is wanted by Amadlos. There isn't. Culturally, there are some of the things that they could do. For instance, let's say somebody is still a child, they can do what they call to cover Amadlos. In other words, that's when you ask through maybe slaughtering something and say, this child is still growing. Let the child grow, and then then it will happen. Or perhaps, let's say now you are working as an air hostess, and then there is no one at home who will help you to raise the small children. You can go and ask and say, can I a little bit wait? I will come and do. So you can do that. Some have tried to use those rituals to go away, but the experience, the general experience that in one way or another, this thing will come back to help. So yeah, outside of God, really, there is no way of it seems, according to what we have found, of helping the person. But of course, I mean, if we talk of God, God is above everything. It can be possible to help somebody to evade Uktwasa through prayer. But they have to be very, very serious about God. Otherwise, if they're not serious, it's not going to work. Because the spirit Zamadlos never give up. They always try to come back.
Now, don't you see a parallel between the God of the Old Testament, who punishes maybe until the 4th generation, and with that, if I don't answer this call, my child will suffer this thing. And if he doesn't, or she doesn't, also his or her child will also suffer, which may go to whatever generation. Is there any parallel on that?
Yeah, maybe it will be unfair to make a parallel. Of course, yes, that kind of an understanding is there, but it wasn't the God of the Old Testament. It was the level of understanding God in that time was lower. Okay. So it was the people's understanding of God at the time, but it's not like God in the Old Testament. It was cruel, and yes, it was they were at the elementary level of understanding God. But yes, when we read there, we can see this parallel, because we can refer to guys like Moses. I mean, Moses tried to run away from the call in Exodus chapter 3. God was very insistent. He tried to say, I can't speak. God said, I will give you Aaron. He said, Lord, if they ask me, and I tell them this, and he said, Lord, but how did I know? He said, take the stick. The man tried everything. And you can think about Jonah. When he was called to Tarshish, to Nineveh, went to Tarshish. There is a difference of, I think, more than 1,000. He was supposed to go east. He literally went west, opposite direction.
He didn't even attempt. He showed him that battle.
My favorite story there is when he said to the people in the ship there, throw me in the sea. Why didn't he jump?
Throw me so that the sea may be calm.
Yeah, throw me into the sea.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so we do have such examples that even in the Bible, the question of the call that you cannot evade is also there. I mean, take an example of Paul. Paul was going to arrest Christians, and then Paul suddenly the light hits him. He is blind. He was instructed. Jesus said, stand up, go to the city, they will tell you what to do. There was no negotiation. And in that state of being blind, when suddenly something that hit you like that, who would have said no?
You listen to everything. Yeah, true.
So there is also an element of that. Generally, that a vocation does have that element of, it's such that if you avoid it, you might not be happy, because when you are called, God is moving you to something that you are meant for. So, I mean, all the prophets, it was not easy for them. I mean, Isaiah said, woe unto me, and I have unclean lips, I'm a sinner. He felt bad. He didn't want to go there because he felt unworthy. But God, God helped him to embrace that. The same was true with Jeremiah. He said, Lord, I'm young. And God didn't say, no, please understand. He said, if I call you, I call you. I knew you before you were born. And where I sent you, you will go. There was no negotiation. Where I sent you, you will go. It's only Mary who was lucky because she said. It seems like the angel was negotiating a possibility.
How can this be? Since I do not know.
But even the thing that didn't come as a question, it says, "Hail, full of grace, the Lord is with you. You will conceive and you will give birth to a child." There was no, do you think?
I
mean, after the angel was there telling you all these things, who would say to God, no? So there is some parallel really between what is happening culturally and also biblically as well. Of course, in culturally it's more pronounced that you really suffer and you have no choice at all. We do understand that in God you can have that freedom, even though we do accept that if you have not followed your vocation well,
And
whether you'll be, you may not be as happy. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes even people who don't follow their vocation well, sometimes when things happen in their life, they sometimes see it as a curse.
Yes.
And how can we speak about breaking this curse? How do we break this curse? Because of someone will say, like for instance, you'll find out someone maybe who once came to the seminary, didn't complete their seminary. It's likely, it's likely to get some of them succeeding. And you'll always hear our parishioners saying, "Hey, it's not good. You know what the Catholics have done? What the Catholics have done to this person is not good, because of sometimes this person, the life looks as if it's kaput, as if there's no hope." How do we break curse?
It's just we need to know that God really is a God of love. God is a God of love, and anyway, everybody has got a chance and a possibility in life, and you may blunder. For instance, perhaps God has called you, but you blundered because you're a human being, and you end up in a place where you are not supposed to be. But the good thing is that with God, it doesn't matter if you repent, God will accept you back. I mean, if God forgave a criminal on the cross on the last second of his life, when all his life, Baba, I'll be pointing at it. If this man entered, No, with God, you cannot be condemned. As long as you are willing to repent, God will embrace you again. That's the thing.
Father Skosana, thank you very much for your time. Any shout outs at home, Kuba Pula Puli, exhortation, maybe you can encourage them.
Thank you very much, all the viewers. We really wish you all the best. We know that the topic that we're discussing here is very broad, and probably we didn't do justice to it. But we thank you for your support and for viewing this, and we hope that there is something important that you have learned. Thank you, and may God bless you.
Any last word, Obakan?
Well, our viewers, thank you very much for subscribing to SJV Conversations. We are really trying our all best to make sure that this becomes one of the best podcasts that you can ever get. We want to be people who bring you the news, like Radio Veritas, the good news for the change. But we bring you news that will always bring you and be strengthen your faith.
Yeah. Before we close, Father Skosana, I'll teach you something. Obakan will help me here, because we are people who are scrumptious. You understand? We are people who are tops, ngamajit, future priest, when I guess I'm priest also. And then all of us are feeling scrumptious today, okay? We are feeling scrumptious today. We are feeling scrumptious. Come on, Father Skosana, come on. What am I? Scrumptious. Yeah, we are feeling scrumptious. Yeah. 1, 2. Condis magenge. We are feeling scrumptious today. Yeah. Thanks again.